Calling all oil and gas producers, it's time to flood the markets. At least that's what Washington's hoping for.
He's asking upon our domestic and international producers to produce more.
It makes sense since Joe Biden has long been trying to rip the West away from one of its biggest energy suppliers, Russia.
Today, I'm announcing the United States is targeting the main artery of Russia's economy. We're banning all imports of Russian oil and gas and energy. There will be no longer a Nord Stream 2. We will bring an end to it. Just imagine if, in fact, Europe didn't have to count on Russian oil, if they were energy independent.
$400 billion of EU sanction-related losses, record-breaking runaway inflation in the U.S. itself, and Washington's taking all this even further. It's recently slapped sanctions against a number of Chinese and Emirati companies doing business with Iran, one of a few countries that might be able to counteract the rapidly rising global price of oil. But Washington seems more interested in its maximum pressure campaign against Iran, so oil prices saw a sudden sharp rise after that decision. It's just the latest episode in Biden's series of sanctions that leave worldwide pain and suffering in their wake. For those who would rather laugh than cry, memes comparing Biden's tragic tumble from his bicycle to the collapse of the economy offer some sort of comic relief. Others, though, just want the price of oil to go down.
Asian buyers are hoping for a quick return of Iranian supply to bring oil prices lower amidst rising geopolitical tensions.
I think that the United States is finding itself in a quandary, as is now what's been happening over Ukraine, because all they thought at the beginning is that they could use this kind of maximum pressure and using long arms sanctions to achieve its aim, without realizing that this is all already a big backlash on their own economy, on their livelihood, the people's livelihood, and on inflation.
To make matters worse, history's repeating itself as Washington's demanding the European Union stops buying natural gas from Russia as well. Reports are already saying Berlin, for example, may be hoarding gas to prevent a disastrous winter.
We must and we will do everything we can to store as much gas as possible in the summer and fall. Gas consumption must continue to fall, so more gas must be stored in storage, otherwise things will get really tight in winter.
It should come as no surprise that all these consequences of the West's generosity towards Ukraine have begun to change people's minds about the conflict. According to a poll published by the European Council on Foreign Relations, 35% of Europeans are war-weary and want to see a peace treaty signed with Russia. Only 22% want to see the war continue. That much is clear when you talk to the people on the streets of Italy, for example.
Gasoline has an absurd price. With 50 euros of gasoline, you can't fill the tank.
I don't go out. I don't take the car and I go with the public transport. It is the only way.
With the subsidy that will be removed at the end of July, gasoline price will reach €2.50. There is no solution. We are in a catastrophe.
Politicians have not always been up to the task. We hope there will be a more substantial intervention.
It has become a difficult situation. I don't drive the car anymore. I ride a Vespa.
The European Union's helmsmen no doubt see the fatigued writing on the wall, with the calls of its officials for Kiev to come to the negotiating table getting louder and louder. French President Emmanuel Macron said Kiev will eventually have to negotiate, even suggesting that Ukraine might have to give up some of its territory, a big no-no for Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky.
It is absolutely necessary to speak to Putin, and I will continue to do so, as the French president will also.
À l'Ukraine de le décider.
It's up to Ukraine to decide. We cannot decide the conditions for the end of the war instead of the Ukrainians. All decisions are made by the Ukrainian leader.
We need more help from our partners. First of all, we need weapons, full support without any exceptions and setbacks. Resist everyone who is stuck in 20th century when nations' interests were traded to appease dictators' appetites.
At any rate, Washington's insistence on putting politics ahead of common-sense energy decisions might just see Western economies take a harder tumble than Biden off his bike. And if this maximum pressure campaign continues on Iran, what effect do you think that's going to have on East Asian energy markets?
In spite of the sanctions, Russian oil and gas are still finding its way to other countries. As I said, because there are so many different ways. And of course, as far as the biggest customer, China, is concerned, of course, China has been trading with Russia for a long, long time, and China does not see why its normal trade should be disrupted and should be pressurized to follow Americans' input. So that's why Russia is gaining quite hugely from this increase in oil prices, which strengthen the exchange rate of the ruble. So I think that we're seeing a very complicated reaction kind of scenario. But at the end of the day, I think the United States is seeing increasingly clear, especially the Biden administration, that it can't just prevail by just imposing sanctions on other countries.